Perfect. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jewyl Alderson Clarke, and I am the Integrated Curriculum Coordinator at the San Diego County Office of Ed, where I support career readiness and innovation initiatives.
And good morning. My name is Molly Ash, and I am a program manager with the Regional Strong Workforce Program for the San Diego and Imperial Counties Community Colleges.
So today we're here to really just talk about recruitment and marketing and go through some ideas. And so really the guiding question we have here is this idea: how can you engage in intentional and informed recruitment and marketing that leads to improved student success and increased career technical education pathway and program completion? I know, there's a lot of push towards completing pathways, whether that's in the K-12 or the post-secondary system. How are we ensuring the students who enter our system are meeting what they need to meet, and that more students, and there's equity in those things, right? So I'm hoping that this hits a lot of the issues that you're all seeing when you get into this. So the first thing I want you to think about is, what is your elevator pitch? Let's say you are at the grocery store in line, or you are running across campus, the kid or you, and I want you to think about how would you respond to that question in 30 seconds or less. And I am like, so if you've got this question, tell me about the medical pathway at your school. How would you respond to that? And I wonder if any of you feel comfortable enough that you might get on the audio and just you can pick your favorite one you know the most about. But what would this little 30-second elevator pitch look like for you? Any volunteers? I don't see anyone unmiking themselves. Now, when I was in the classroom, I built out the medical pathway at Eastlake High School. And so my elevator pitch might have said, we are intentionally working to ensure students have real world experiences in both their science classes and their CTE classes that connect to each other, connect with industry, and prepare students for real world STEM jobs that exist here in our region. Right? Something like that is a great way to share that. So if anybody wants to volunteer, I'll give one more call out. But what this also might mean is, if you're not comfortable in this group of like 30 counselors who have a lot of grace, what does this mean when you get in front of a parent or a student? If you don't have an elevator pitch for every program that you're supporting, then that's one of your to-do list items, right? Make sure that you can speak to the programs that you're offering and that you are really comfortable with that. Now, for those of you who've joined us in the last few minutes, I'm going to just drop the link to this presentation one more time in here, because we are going to jump into resources, activities, and an action plan that you might use in order to address recruitment and marketing at your school. So first thing you want to do is think about, what are your concerns when it comes to recruitment? What do you want to address? Low enrollment, right? Some of your programs might have low enrollment. There might be issues with understanding of course sequencing, right? Like, well, how come I can't take this introductory class and then this other class? Well, if they're not in the same industry sector, then those don't become a sequence of courses that lead to that in-depth knowledge that we want to see from our pathway completers. Things like parent and student communication, just like right here, having those elevator pitch kind of moments ready is one great thing. But if you can't Google every program that you have and easily find an answer, then how on earth are your parents and students going to find that information, particularly right now when it's virtual and they can't come knocking on your door? You also never want a program where the only way they can get what they need is to come knocking at your door. You're super busy. That means that they have to be a really high-level student advocate in order to find that information, and we want to make sure that it's at their fingertips at all time. We want to think about equity and access. Have you ever walked into a career pathways program and seen that maybe it's really male dominated, and we really want to encourage our female students to see their place in that industry? We also have some programs like high technology where you might see certain ethnicities who are overrepresented and others who are underrepresented. So how are we addressing those concerns along the way? Things like student placement. I'll say in the K-12 space, every senior in an introductory class is a spot where you won't have a completer. right? You can't place seniors in intro classes and because there's nowhere for them to go. They can never complete, right? So what we want to do is prioritize those sophomores or those juniors so that they can get that 2 or that 3-year sequence under their belt. And by a senior, they're on the capstone course, they're in internships, they're earning certifications, right? So really thinking about student placement and who the ideal student who should be prioritized into those classes is, that's a piece of this puzzle as well. Look at your completion rates. If you, one place for K-12 that you can also look at is the school dashboard and the California indicator for career readiness. And I'm actually doing a session on that next session. So if you want to know more about the CCI, the College Career Indicator, come on down to my next session at whatever time is next, I think 12 to 1. But thinking about your completion rates and understanding like how many students do you put into that intro or that concentrator class? And then how many complete? Are you getting most of your students through that program? And then finally, this idea, like what is the long-term plan? One beautiful thing about this conference is that we are really bringing together the community college and the K-12 perspective. And so here, this might look like, you know, how do we help all students see the programs that are part of the pathway? Because the pathway might begin in high school, but it continues at the community college or the four-year college and things like that. At the community college, right, there are also long-range planning. Are they going to transfer? What kinds of apprenticeships or certifications do they need to enter into the workplace successfully, right? So these are all a piece of the puzzle. And how do we really work with students to understand what they need and then help them to see what pathway is right for them? And the final one that's a hard thing is this old notions of career pathways, right? We all struggle with this. You know, we've had a 4-year or failure mentality for so long in K-12, but we know that, and we'll talk a little bit about these middle skill jobs that are very lucrative, that get students into industry more quickly and help them to be really set up for success here in San Diego County, where we know that the cost of living is really high, and Imperial County. I know that we have both here today. So this is kind of like really think about what are your concerns? Are these all part of it? Each pathway might have different concerns. And so you have to think about how to best address those. So overarching, there are 3 different components of your kind of journey towards recruitment and marketing. The first one is going to be, we're going to talk about how do we really hone the messaging that we have for our pathway. The second one is how do we build our team from our own organization around understanding our pathway. And then finally, we can go to outreach. So we can't just go out and outreach without having all of these other pieces in place. So let's start by looking a little bit more in depth on pathway messaging. Now, if pathways are not your jam, like that's totally cool. You have not experienced pathways. You weren't a pathway student. You're at a large comprehensive high school and you are here today because you're like, I want to support my pathways, but I didn't really know the ins and outs, right? The first thing you want to know is that this is a multi-year sequence of courses. In the K-12 system, we're going to have introduction, concentrator, and capstone. If it's a 2-year sequence, that's going to be concentrator and capstone. That's important when it comes to reporting to the state, but it's also one of the reasons why we have really specific sequences that we might set out for our pathways in our schools. These are actually taught by instructors with specific industry experience. So they have to have a CTE credential in K-12, and in post-secondary, there are minimum qualifications or min-quals around industry experience for our CTE folks, because we really want our teachers in these programs to know the industry that the students are going to. When it comes to K-12 pathways, we are building pathways that are focused on high-wage, high-growth careers in the local region where pathways are being built, right? So that's not just like San Diego County, but we also look at some of the smaller labor market areas. So even though we have San Diego County or Imperial County labor market data, we have North County labor market data. We have schools who have agriculture programs because they're in maybe like Poway area, which has more ag, or Ramona or Fallbrook. But then when we get into the city, we might have more tech because there's more of those right into their micro labor market. K-12 pathway completers, when I said that 2 to 3 year sequence, it comes down to needing 300 hours in those courses. It's really specific. although pathway intro courses can begin in 7th grade, their new Perkins 5 actually pushes the funding opportunities down to 5th grade. And so we may see a change over the next few years because we've just had some federal changes in how funding can be used. But that means that your middle schools sometimes have great intro courses or wheel courses that introduce them to the mini programs at their high school. And then each sector in K-12 has a number of pathway options. So if you've ever seen this little thing full of bubbles, each of these big bubbles is a sector. So that's different industries. Within that, each one of these tiny little bullet points is a separate pathway. And there are separate standards for each pathway in each sector that you see here. And so if you want to know more about required standards, they're right here. And down here at the bottom, I linked to this just slide deck that I have that's just a general overview of pathways. So if you're like, what do you mean by linked learning? Project Lead the Way. There's so much happening. Feel free to dive deeper or reach out to me if you have any questions.
And then at the community college level, we also have sectors as well. So these are the sectors that have been identified by the California Community College System. And these are the ones that the community colleges, the 115 community colleges in the state of California, focus on for career education. Now, the ones that are highlighted in yellow are the sectors that the San Diego and Imperial County region has identified as priority sectors for our region. So while there's all these sectors that are available at the community colleges, the regions decide what sectors are priority for their area based on labor market information, and then collaboration with each of the region deans. So these are the sectors that we focus on right now. These go through a continual refresh. Global trade used to be a priority sector of ours. It is no longer based on labor market information and priority from our deans. So these constantly go through a refresh. We will be doing that again this spring. So these may change as well. But a lot of the focus that we do at the regional marketing level, which is the project that I help to manage, is based on these sectors. So these have the highest opportunity for fulfillment and middle skills jobs, and then high wage, high demand. So that's why we focus on these areas. Community colleges do offer career education programming in all of these sectors though. That link at the bottom is a crosswalk. I don't know if you've seen that crosswalk, but it crosswalks the sectors and the career education programs between community colleges, CDE, I think Department of Labor, and there might be a couple of other ones on as well. So that's a great resource. We do have a priority sector crosswalk in our career education guide that we'll speak about a little bit later, but that again just crosswalks what our priority sectors are and not all of our community college sectors. So that link at the bottom is a great resource for where everything falls into line. And then just a reminder of middle skills jobs. So this is what we focus on a lot at the community college level, and I believe at the K-12s as well. But middle skills jobs pay well. So these are jobs that require more than a high school diploma, but less than a 4-year degree. We've got a high percentage of occupations in our region that are middle skills jobs. So we really tailor our career education programs towards that skill. By definition, strong workforce funding that we've received at the community colleges is to create more and better CTE with a goal to provide or train 1 million more middle skills workers. So this is a lot of the focus of our work at the community college level. And then you'll see there just a median hourly rate. So middle skills jobs can pay much higher than a job that requires a 4-year degree. And that's a theme that we heard in the keynotes presentation this morning as well.
Absolutely. Well, and yeah, and that's one of the pieces of the puzzle is a lot of people with a 4-year degree are underemployed. And so we really want to focus on jobs that ensure our students have the skills they need for employment. And that's what CTE is all about. If you want to understand more about the labor market, the workforceconnection.org, if you click on this direct link, it will actually take you to the labor market information that is from the Center of Excellence, which is the community college focused labor market organization. And they pull in all of the data in order to ensure these programs are built, supporting local labor market needs. You can also, for this conference, there was a form that was sent out where you can request labor market posters, as well as some extra pieces to be mailed to your district for you. And so if you're interested in having some of those posters and things like that, make sure you fill out that form, because they're really excellent resources for you and for your students to see, so they understand where they're going when they leave the K-12, K-14, K-16, whatever it is. You know, we know they're hopefully only in education for a finite period of time, and then they head to careers. So how do we make sure that our students know what's out there? And so when you get into this program messaging, like the first thing you want to do is imagine you're a parent, you're a student, you're looking for information. Start Googling it, because you know how to navigate it. You might even want to pull it up in an incognito window, because what that means is when you search with that incognito in Google Chrome or any of those kind of like secret windows, is it doesn't look at all of the cookies and things stored on your computer. So it's almost like a fresh eye is looking for something. So start searching your pathways. What is easy to find? How many clicks does it take on your website to get all the way to your career pathway information? And are those barriers for your students? When you're getting into messaging, look at your course sequencing. What is the requirement for a certificate, for a degree? Build your program of study, and I'll show you a little bit more about what that looks like in a minute. Create marketing materials. This could be brochures or posters or handouts. Videos are great. You can often rope your actual video classes, your students, into creating videos. You want to make sure your website is not just updated, but streamlined. Is there a link to it from the front page of the school's website? You know, create little banners that say, hey, CTE month is February. Have you thought about what program you want to be in? Right? So you can do all of those kinds of things and get them all ready to go out. The other thing you want to consider is consistency. Sometimes when we look at equity across pathways, we'll see like this pathway that's a graphic design pathway has amazing stuff, and they've created videos, and they created a splash page, or they created all this crazy stuff. And then another pathway for whom the marketing skills are not part of their standards, right? Like maybe it's a construction trades pathway. They aren't necessarily going to create all of those things themselves. So as a district, as an organization, what you want to do is help make sure that all of the marketing is aligned, that it's equal, so that students aren't going after the fancy pathways because of the marketing, but instead are really looking equally at all of the qualities of pathways and helping students to get in there.
And then at the college level, along those same lines, so obviously creating your marketing materials, brochures. We've got some examples of best practices for brochures that I'll share with you that the community colleges have done. Social media content, this is huge for community college students. This is a big focus of the work we do in the regional campaign. There's definitely some best practices that go along with social media content. We have regional social media pages. You can see them kind of linked across the top, but that is a great way to reach your students. Handouts, again, will show some best practices for those. And then updating your instructional website. I'm not sure if all faculty have personal instructional websites. Marketing at community college level is done a little bit differently than it is at the K-12. It's very localized. So every faculty member handles this differently, but these are just some ideas and best practices of ways that you can improve your marketing strategies. And then always a consistency with the regional branding. So we've invested going on 4 years now, and a big chunk of our funding towards creating this regional brand. You'll see the logo at the top. I will also provide some resources for you to use where you can incorporate this into your messaging. But it's really important that we, as a region, have a unified front so we can improve that perception of community colleges. And as soon as people start to see that logo, they'll realize, oh, you know, I've seen this at a couple of community colleges. This must be a consortium of sorts. So obviously always pushing that regional branding. Oh, Jewyl, we lost you on audio. Sounds like.
Sorry, here I am.
There you're back.
I have my own button and I forget to push it sometimes. So when we get into this idea of a program of study for our students, it's really helpful if you sit down and think about like, okay, if I have a student who's a pathway completer, what would be all of the ideal classes for them to take? You not only can do that for your own exercise to work with your students, but if you write that down, then you could have a document like this where students can basically like circle the courses that they want to take any given year. And you have the CTE courses here that they need to take in order to get through. You can also use things like an asterisk to show that it's A through G, or a little hashtag to show that it's articulated, right? Use notations in order to help them see that. You might also have a column for like what kinds of work-based learning experiences those students should experience. So this is one kind of example of building a full program of study. And then you don't want to just limit that to their K-12 experience. This is where those of you who are in K-12 and those of you who are in post-secondary really can work together to align. So here what you can see is for this ICT pathway course 1, 2, 3, on the back side of this document, what we can have is a bunch of labor market information, and this is just cut and paste from the San Diego Workforce Partnership. So you can grab things from there, you can grab things from the Center of Excellence, but also then you can go through and you can work on, all right, if you're interested in ICT, here are programs that are specifically certifications, 2-year degrees, or 4-year programs. This helps students see that no matter what their current perspective is on where they're going to go after high school, that they can find a fit for them. If you work with your community college, you can actually go through and link each one of these to the program at the community college you feed into. And that really helps to give students that idea of like, what is my path from here to career? Not just to high school graduation. And so we really encourage you to work with your community college counterparts. If you're in K-12, if you're in community college, dive down in and work with your K-12 folks on developing things for each one of their pathways that show students what they can do after high school and really see certifications. I've had friends whose kids are like, like one of my friends, she's like, oh, my son just doesn't want to do anything after high school, including working, but he's really into music and wants to make his own music. And I said, well, has he looked into some of the programs in like audio technology at the community colleges? And she was like, well, he doesn't want to take like math and English and all these things. And it's like, well, it turns out there are certifications where you just go take a couple community college classes. Now, what happens is maybe they get there and they start seeing the value of maybe if I just got my associates, I could do this much more. But if you're passionate about music and you can do your own recording, you can charge other people in the industry to do their recordings. And so that was like one way to get a student's foot in the door on post-secondary and really give them more skills that they can use to get money, right? Because we know it costs money to live. Our students just haven't always figured out yet. So how do we give students so many options? On the other side, we have some parents who are like, my kid doesn't need CTE because they're going to be a doctor. Like, well, have you looked at our medical pathways? Did you know that this is a great way for them to get into those 4-year advanced degrees as well and have, high schools have internships. They have all of these experiences that help to build out a resume for those students who, right now they're going to be a doctor. I was going to be a doctor. I set that goal for myself in the 3rd grade. I went to college and I was pre-med. And then I got an internship. I passed out in the operating room and I said, maybe the goal I set for myself in 3rd grade is not the goal I should have for the rest of my life. Now, back up. If I could have done that in high school and figured it out and not spent years in college and money in college just to figure out that the goal I set for myself wasn't right, that would be amazing. That's the point of what we're doing, right? We want to give students earlier and earlier experiences so it doesn't take them passing out in the operating room while a child's heart is open.
Oh no.
Yeah,
but then you wouldn't have that story
on like a 6-year-old.
Oh, wow.
And the doctor's like, oh, this happens to everyone. Here's some juice. Get back over here. So they're super nice about it. You might be able to get past that. But instead, I ended up teaching medical chemistry. So I ended up in helping students in the medical field. But I found out that education is my passion and my excitement and all of those things through all kinds of other random ways. So I wish I had known that earlier so that I might have changed the path that I took. So how do we get in front of our students so they can do that? Sorry, that was a long side note, but this is why I'm passionate about it and why this is so important for our students. There's a few highlights here, and I have some screenshots of just websites where they have a lot of information. So this is Poway's website, and it's really nice because it shows each one of the high schools. And right here is a little logo that's kind of the overarching sector logo. And that helps you know which pathways are available at that high school. They actually have a couple right here, public services and transportation, that are open to all students. So students can any student can go to some of these programs because of or multiple schools because of the way they have it set up. If you click on any of these, it will get into the specific pathway within those sector. And once you click on it, you can see that here the information that they're providing is like, what level is it? Is it articulated? What are the supporting pieces? So this is a really nice way that Poway has set out in order to communicate what a student gets out of the pathway and what it means to be part of that pathway, right? So building and construction trades, I'm going to take these 2 courses. Public services, I'm going to take these 3 courses. Transportation, these 3 courses. It's a sequence of courses. It's a pathway. It's not just an elective. And the way we speak about them is actually really important in students' perspective on, are they going to continue in that pathway? These are a couple from Carlsbad that are really nice. They're just infographics. Here you can see their biomedical sciences, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. This is a pathway where it overlaps with their A through G science requirements, their D-level lab sciences. And so they actually have 4 full years in that pathway. Similarly, the engineering pathway has 4 full years. So these are another nice way to communicate your pathway and what courses are part of it. Although I will have to admit, I don't think they're still using this. This is one of my favorite pieces that I've seen, because right here, what you see is at Torrey Pines High School, they have a number of pathways. So here are 5 separate pathways, and it gives you their course, their full course. So here a parent or student can be really quickly informed about what their options are and what it entails. And that's really where the magic is, right? We want to take the guesswork out of students picking a pathway. We really want to empower them to make an informed decision. Molly.
And then just some best practices here. Oh yeah, I thought maybe I was still muted. So just some best practices here, just from a marketing standpoint. So ensure clear calls to action. So what do you want them to do with the information that you're giving them? Do you want them to learn more? Do you want them to register? Do you want them to contact you for information? So that's really important, is to make the ask very clear and then provide them with the opportunity to follow up on that ask. Audit the information you're using for ease of user flow and ability to measure that the campaign is set up for success. So if you're asking them to contact you, if you're asking them to register, how are you measuring that the information you're giving them is allowing them to do that? That follow-up is really important, or else we're putting out information and we're not able to track those people back down. And then obviously using attention grabbing and vibrant, engaging creative assets. So lots of times I'll see flyers with like stick figures or just like handwritten notes. And while sometimes you got to use what you have, that's probably not the most engaging. So I'll show you some best practices on the next couple of slides. And I apologize here, I did not think about, you know, putting in screenshots, and I should have. These are all linked, so you have access to this presentation. You can go out to these, but basically the idea for these websites is they're very clear. They each, you know, offer a screenshot of, thank you, of all of their sectors. And then if you select one of those sectors, if you scroll down and you can select advanced manufacturing. So you'll see here, Southwestern has all of their sectors listed. So what are you interested in? Advanced manufacturing. So you click on that and it shows you the programs that are available in advanced manufacturing. You can again click on one of those and it will give you program information, course information, gainful employment information, and then usually it'll have a video there, which is great, and then contact information at the bottom. So that's the most important. If they have questions, who do they reach out to? So there's a couple great examples on there. Not all of the community colleges are created equal, and not all of the community colleges have this information readily available to the students. That is something that we're constantly working on with each of the colleges, because we lose so many students through this college website navigation process. So that is really important. The next slide will have some best practices for college handouts. So these are brochures for college programs. Again, it has information about the course, information about the industry, labor market information, contact information. This is all really important information to give your students. It seems so basic, but if we're not even providing this to them, then we're definitely doing them a disservice. So here's an example from Mesa. The next slide, we have an example from Cuyamaca, their environmental health and safety management program. They have student testimonials on here, faculty testimonials. These are great. We use this all the time at the regional marketing level. Potential students want to hear from current and former students. How did the program benefit them? How did they get into a job? That is the most valuable piece of marketing you can provide. And then the next slide, I believe, is Miracosta. So Miracosta's Media and Arts and Technology program. So again, who are we? What does it take to complete this program? What can you do with this certificate or degree? And how can you contact us for more information? So this is a big one too. Hopefully everyone on the call is familiar with our career.org website. So it really is the first stop when you're discovering community college and career education programs. We have a description of all of our sectors at the top. We also have a description of all our community colleges. And I'd say the piece de resistance is the program finder. So if you click on colleges and programs there at the top, you can access our program finder, and there you can look for programs or sectors at any of the community colleges. If you know what community college you want to go to, great, you can go directly through there. If you don't, you can click on the program finder. You can put in the program or the sector that you're interested in, and it will show you all the options at the community colleges. Now, the one piece that this does not have is that correlation to the K-12 program. So I'm not sure if everybody on this call is familiar with I'm not sure exactly even what we're calling it, the K-14 program finder or program mapper. It's a project that we are partnering with Orange County to include San Diego and Imperial community colleges and K-12s in. So that will be a separate website, but that will provide a crosswalk between what is being done and offered at the K-12 level and then the community college level. So that will be coming out in spring, hopefully. So the community college program finder is still going to stay as is. It provides a different set of information. It's got our college overviews, our sector overviews, salary information, labor market information, student success videos, career videos. So this is really a great resource for your students. So we definitely recommend pointing them towards this. And then obviously the career education guide, we've spoken about this a few times this morning. We've revised this for this year. We've updated our sectors. We've updated our labor market information. So it includes a salary, annual and hourly salary. That was really important to the schools. We've also included some RIASEC information. So you'll see that there. We have an introduction that kind of explains what RIASEC is. And then for each of the sectors, we've added that information on there. So that is linked on there as well. And then like Jewyl mentioned, I believe a Google Doc went out. If you're interested in receiving any of this information, we will be driving around and dropping these off at campuses the first week of January. So please let us know. And then also, yes, if you want to, yeah, thank you. So our sector handouts, these are new this year. So our middle school, high school team has worked with our K-12 partners to create these sector handouts. Right now, they are just for our priority sectors. We will be doing them for all sectors in the coming months. So be on the lookout for that. But this is great information. It probably looks familiar to the flyer that Jewyl showed you. Our Center of Excellence Director used to work at San Diego Workforce Partnerships. So she has brought all of her knowledge and her expertise to the community colleges. So we've really tried to kind of streamline things in that arena. So again, did you know, some fast facts, career pathway and salary information there. And then lastly is just the college, I'm not sure if that's last actually, just our college resource. These are our social media. So we've got regional social media accounts. You're encouraged to follow our accounts. We share faculty stories, student stories, enrollment information, special events happening at the colleges. If you are a faculty member or a counselor at the community colleges or the K-12 and you have something that you think would benefit the region, you can contact me directly. We're always looking for content. It's a great way to reach a broader audience. So please make sure you're following us. And then the last slide here is just some imagery. So I mentioned the regional career education logo as well. At the community college level, we are, and even at the K-12 level, we are requesting that you please co-brand your stuff. Let's get this logo out and familiar so it really assists students. YouTube, we have our YouTube channel has sector specific success videos that have been very popular. We will be expanding those coming in the next year to not only our priority sectors, but we'll expand it to all sectors. And we also want to do a day in the life of video. So that shows students who have graduated from our programs and gone into the workforce and what does that look like. So expect many more videos coming to that platform. And then our student photo library. 2 years ago, when we created all of our marketing materials, we were using not stock, but we were using imagery from the California Community College system. And a lot of our public information officers at the campus said, you know, can't really use this information because it doesn't feature our students. So we did a photo shoot with students from every sector, 2 programs from every campus. And so you all have access. I don't think I linked it there, but I will, to that photo library. So especially at the community college level, you want to put students that are familiar, campuses that are familiar, faculty and colleges that are familiar into your marketing material. So that is a great way to do that. So that's it.
So as you're kind of taking in so much, I know that this conference is a very, like, you're taking it all in. I also want you to make some goals. And so we have these 3 different components. The first component is the biggest one, right? We've spent like 40 minutes talking about it because having your messaging down is the #1 key piece, right? Not just your messaging, but what are your pathways, all the details. But I want you to make a goal. What's one thing I want to do to improve pathway or program messaging at my site or campus? If you're willing to share that in Whova, we'd love to hear in the comments some of the goals that you're setting for yourself and your team as we jump into the next section. So the next section is really about who is your team. You want to build your team. Who's your core recruitment team? You want to have a meeting that has the faculty or teachers, the counselors, administrators to ensure a thorough understanding of the pathway. Clear up misconceptions. When I was starting the medical pathway at Eastlake High School, I had a student who was put into my medical chemistry class because they were told it was easier than regular chemistry. I was like, same standards, same most of the same assignments because I worked really closely with my colleagues. The labs were different. If anything, it's harder because I'm throwing all these cool articles your way, right? So we wanted to really clear things up. We also had counselors who thought they should be, they took bio, but they didn't take med bio, but it was the same credit. So they didn't necessarily understand that. So once I started, I began to have an annual meeting where I talked about our pathway and answered any questions. And it was like during one of the counselor PLC meetings and invited administration to come. And it was a huge game changer. And so I really encourage you to reach out and build these teams around your pathways. There is here a action plan for marketing and recruitment. And I'm actually going to pop over to this other tab because I've already opened it. But it doesn't want to be loaded. I loaded it. Oh, there we go. And what you'll see here is that goal 1, what we talked about. Here are some potential action steps you could take around pathway messaging. I encourage you to download this, make a copy of it, and then go through this with this core team. You just delete the stuff that you don't want to do. But whatever things you want, like what are the priorities? So that first area we talked about, here's your action steps. Goal 2 is this communication, right? So first you're going to set up that meeting. I'm going to pop back to the slides now. Set up that meeting, and then we're going to inform other stakeholders in our system, right? If your assistant principal or the middle school, high school, or the middle school science teacher gets asked about pathway opportunities at the high school, what do they know about them? Can they give an elevator pitch? Can they at least point students in the direction of where it lives on the website? If not, you want to have opportunities for those additional stakeholders who are part of your bigger picture team to be informed. So this could be feeder school administrators, teachers, and counselors, teachers from your own campus in courses that have students who might be interested in those programs, school board members, right? Anyone who might be asked about your programs. Another cool stakeholder group that you can use are graduates, capstone students, and completers. So if you have students who are in your pathway, particularly in the second, third year, who are more advanced, who've had these experiences, bring them in and create a team where they're part of that. So who needs to be able to speak knowledgeably about your program and pathways? On the K-12 side, your administrators, teachers, counselors, feeder school folks, and pathway students and graduates. On the college side, you want to make sure all of your deans, your faculty, your counselors, your career center, right? For, you know, a lot of times at the high schools, our career centers are really part of the counseling area. But at the post-secondary, a lot of times the career center is kind of a separate entity. So how much are you in contact with them, because they're the ones who are helping students find a career, and they might actually be able to point them back to other classes at the school that they might be interested in. You know, again, your feeder schools, so all of your K-12 programs, and guess who's your magical new person? We have K-12 pathway coordinators assigned to every community college district. They're brand new on board this year. So if you're at the post-secondary and you're like, who's my person? You can talk to Molly or myself or Leslie Wisdom if you know her. She's the one who runs all of that. But they are actually, their entire job is to connect our post-secondary community college partner to the K-12 feeders. And so there's one person for each community college district in the region. And so get to know them, invite them to your counseling meetings. And, you know, I know in my own office, Jennifer Prado is the Palomar College person whose entire job it is to connect Palomar College to the feeder schools. And so get to know whoever it is in your particular college. All right, so who are two new stakeholders you want to bring into the recruitment and marketing conversation this year? I want to just think about that for just one moment. Let's see if we have any comments. I don't see any.
Don't see any yet, but maybe people could, you know, input who they want to include in their marketing recruitment conversations.
Yeah, remember, you have the app or the online Whova. We're really trying to use that. So that's why we've disabled your chat, but hopefully you can at least see the links I'm putting in the chat if you're not able to get into Whova. All right, the final piece of the puzzle is outreach, right? We have creative messaging. We've gotten our team together. Now it's time for the big game, right? Getting out in front of our students, in front of the folks who might be most interested. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that our stakeholders, or our kind of our pool of interest people, understand 21st century pathways, right? We have parents who are like, you know, I'm not sending my kid to home ec. Well, we don't even have home ec anymore, right? We have programs that are designed for 21st century careers. They're for all students. They lead to careers that require certifications, 2-year and 4-year degrees. We know that our idea of career ready needs to keep up with industry needs. And that's why all of our programs have advisory committees who strongly influence the programs themselves. We know that labor market information drives pathway development. And there's this idea, and I think that a couple years ago, this particular conference even had career first as the theme, because we want our students not to just go like, well, I'm going to go to this college because it's where my mom went, or this has a really great party reputation, or whatever it is. We want our students to think about the destination. What is their career? And then find the programs that will best get them there, right? We also want them to understand that, did you know, all of the colleges, the community colleges, specialize just like post-secondary. And so, you know, if you're really interested in the medical field, you probably want to go to Grosse Pointe College or Southwestern's separate campus off the 905 that has great medical programs, right? If you're interested in game design, check out Palomar. If you're, you know, so each one of the colleges has different things, and that's really helpful for our students to know. There's a couple of videos that are really helpful in working with your students. So one is Your Career Starts Here. If you are working with parents and students, this is a great video that connects with both community college folks and K-12 about kind of a little bit of that gap between like the skills that people need and the education they normally receive and what industry needs, right? You get this education, it's very academic, and then you go to get a job and they're like, but you can't do anything, right? So how do we connect those? And CTE is one of the big answers to that. So this is just a resource we put in for you to access. We don't need to watch that. This video on CTE is a great one. It's like only a couple of minutes, and it gives parents, families just a better concept of like what is CTE. So this is really helpful in their base understanding of those things. For high school program outreach, make sure that, that everyone has the information they need to make an educated decision. One of the cool things that I'm hearing happen right now is that pathway students are being guest speakers in the feeder schools and the feeder classes. So, you know, I mean, like right now, so much learning is virtual. And so it's super easy to say like, hey, log into the Zoom of the 9th or the 8th grade science class and talk to them about the computer science pathway at the high school, right? This is a really great way for our students who are already in pathways to share their love of what they're doing. When you're getting into equity mindsets as well, cherry pick, okay? Who is not in your program that you want to be? Have the girls who are in your tech programs be the representative that you send to the middle school. So those middle school girls know that they're not alone if they decide to go into computer science, right? So that's one of the ways to address equity is having, picking whatever population that you're trying to boost as your representative to go to the middle school so that those students see themselves in that career. You can also partner that with helping the middle school find a guest speaker in that field. And then it becomes like, hey, you're gonna have a guest speaker, plus you're gonna have a student talk about that program. Host those pathway information sessions. A lot of that's happening virtually this year. Make sure that students have access to these materials before they register for classes. I know it used to be that I was like a club when I had a pathway. And so they waited until like after the students had already registered to give me a table at the club event. And then kids had to change their whole schedule in order to jump into the medical pathway because schedules had already been created. And so make sure that information is at their fingertips when they're making those decisions.
And then at the community college level, obviously, if you have any questions about regional resources or kind of just marketing in general, you are welcome to reach out to me. Another great resource is our regional directors of employer engagement. So we have one for each of our priority sectors. They really are the connector between education and industry, and that is so important. I know that we utilize them at the community college level, but we should definitely be utilizing them at the K-12 level. So they are a great resource for you. And then lastly, the Center of Excellence for Labor Market Information. So the Centers of Excellence drives all of our data and research, provides us with all of our labor market information that we use to make all of our programming and sector decisions. So that link right there will take you to the labor market briefs that the Center of Excellence have created for us. They're sectioned by sector, and you can just get information on every time a faculty member wants, or every time a community college dean needs to put a program into the system for approval, they have to provide labor market information. So they go to the Centers of Excellence. So those reports that are in there are just really great resources for you to see what the labor market looks like for particular programs. So those three resources are really great. Obviously, your career education dean at the campus should be a main point of contact with you. If you don't know who that is, or if you have any questions, please contact me. And then like Jewyl said, the pathway coordinators. I didn't have a comprehensive list of all those pathway coordinators, so I did not link them here, but I'm happy to put you in touch with whoever it is for your service area.
And shout out to Jamal, who in the Whova comments shared that at their site, their CT counselors are their core marketing and recruitment team. So it's good to like think about that and how they're trying to connect more with their CTE staff and advertise on social media and traditional media. And I think that's a really awesome spot this year is how do we change from like a brochure to something that catches their eye on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, or wherever your audience happens to be. And so that's really helpful as well.
Yeah, who knew social media was going to go from just being a fun pastime to like really the driver of our business and education? It is definitely shifted. So social media is a great tool.
Absolutely. I also wonder, like, how many people here just found out about this conference via social media, right? We use social media as a means for people to build a community. And so how do we also reach into communities and encourage them to find the next step in their life here using career pathways? All right, so this is your final challenge question. What is one way I will reach out to, inform students? So really think about, what are you going to do for that outreach? Finally, next steps, gather your team, consider your current status, like we talked about, identify your resources, identify priorities, set up that action plan. So that action plan is linked here, and that will allow you to just kind of go through, and I'm going to go ahead and drop this action plan right here in the chat of the Zoom in case you want to access that. That's going to force you to make a copy, so you have a copy in yours, and you can start thinking about what are some of the action items I want to use, and you might use that exact document, delete the stuff you don't want, and turn it into a plan, because recruitment and marketing, we are hitting the ground running in January, right? So that's the time to implement. So thank you so much for joining us. We do have just like 3 minutes left. We haven't really seen a lot of questions coming through on Whova, but you can also perhaps even unmute yourself if you have a driving question and you weren't able to get a hold of us in another way. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today for the Counselor Conference and for this particular session on recruitment and marketing. And keep us.
I actually have a question.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. Are you guys doing any other videos? I know that Monica and I'm forgetting the other young lady's name. Yes, they've done some videos that they put on YouTube. If and when you do those, if you would allow people to add them to, so for instance, at my school, I have a YouTube page for the College and Career Center. And as long as the videos on YouTube are, how do I put it? They're not made, they're edited so that they're not made for kids. We can add them to ours, and it just gets a lot more traction than sending them to another place. It's still your videos, still has your branding on it, but it makes it easier for some of the schools to add them to their own YouTube pages.
Yeah, I will say that the regional career education marketing at the community college level has a YouTube, but that's linked into the presentation, and there are videos on there. You are welcome to utilize those.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I just want to add, this is Monica. Hi, Jamal. So Molly and Jewyl, because Heather and I have been doing these discussion forums for the different sectors, what we do is we upload the recordings into YouTube, and now I do it the way you asked me, Jamal, so that way the counselors can also share with their students.
I just want to say that she's the bomb.
She is the bomb. We are so lucky to have her. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Any other questions before we jump off? If not, I just want to remind you all to rate the session in your Whova app after you log off. And I believe, I don't have my schedule up in front of me. Yes, I do. I believe we go to a break now until our afternoon sessions, which start at 1 o'clock. Please make sure, 12 o'clock, excuse me. Thank you.
I'm on again, so I know very well.
Please, you would be late if you were listening to me. Please be sure to check out the community college exhibitors. They have all uploaded videos about their community colleges. Really great resource. You can find that on the right-hand side of, or excuse me, on the left-hand side of your Whova app. Underneath sponsors, it says it's exhibitors. So obviously you have the links to everything. You have our contact information. Please let us know if you have any questions. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.